Thanks, Fran. Fran has been a great friend of mine since he came to the company. I remember my first meeting with Fran. I was running a packaging business that had lost money for about 2 years, and there I am, a brand new general manager, and McCormick has gone outside and hired this very intimidating CFO. And so Fran comes up for my first budget meeting and immediately tells me my budget isn't going to pass muster. You're not bringing that to Baltimore, I can guarantee you. So that was my introduction. Fran's been a great friend and a mentor to me. Fran's very modest, but one thing he really did teach me, and he's a great role model, is how much Fran gives back. He is very active in the community. And he's talked to me about inspirational giving, and that's something that I think all of us who have been fortunate enough to be successful should give back, and Fran is really my role model in that, and I thank him for his friendship and leadership. So it's good to be here. Fran kind of gave you my background. What I'm gonna do is I have a business presentation. But I'll talk about anything that you want to talk about. We can take this in any direction that you really want, because I did a little fireside chat with some student leaders and MBA students, and we took it more to career. So I'm going to try to blend a little bit of the business strategy with a little bit of career background. So if you don't find that interesting, I'll just keep talking and we'll do something different. But I thought first what I do is tell you a little bit about McCormick, who we are, what we stand for, what our culture is, and what has made McCormick successful through the years. Just as kind of the fundamentals, McCormick is a 121-year-old business, founded in Baltimore. If you're familiar with Baltimore, right on the corner of Light and Conway Street was this plant for years after the Great Fire of Baltimore. McCormick used to be in the real estate business, and fortunately got out of the real estate business in 1988 and sold all the real estate holdings, and it generated a lot of cash to become a very pure play over time, a very pure play food company. And that's what we are today. We're about $3.5 billion in sales. About 60% of those sales are consumer sales, the sales for products that go to grocery stores, hopefully the things that you all have on your shelves. And when you entered the University of Maryland, that little bottle of Old Bay that you got along with your crab mallet, that's McCormick, and it's really great to be a part of that. 60% of our business is U.S., 40% is international, and we're rapidly changing that percentage, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We sell products in over 100 countries. We have operations in over 25 countries, and we source from more than 40 countries. And I'll talk a little bit about supply chain, because it's a pretty complex, but a very interesting supply chain. We're really part of a business that has a tremendous amount of history and romance. If you think about the wars that have been fought over the spice routes, and the fact that America's really discovered trying to find a shortcut to the spice routes, and so there's a lot of history and romance, and it's a very, very cool business to be a part of. I want to talk a little bit about what McCormick is and what McCormick stands for, because I believe that a company has to really define what it is that it stands for. And so we went through an effort over the last couple of years to define 5 strategic pillars for McCormick. And what we didn't do is go out and hire an agency to help us create it. We did hire an agency to help us pull it out of our employees, our investors, our customers, our consumers, and really help define what it is that McCormick stands for. And so when we went through this effort, I think our employees were kind of surprised, because every word on these pillars are things that McCormick already stood for and that people were pretty familiar with. So, but I'm going to talk about what they are and why they're meaningful to us. Every company has a mission and a vision and a strategy, and I'm happy to get into the details of our strategies. But what is really fundamental is what does your company, and by definition, what do you stand for and what do you want to be a part of? And I'll start with the first one, which is really what McCormick is all about and was founded on, and that's a passion for flavor. We're really in a flavor business, and everybody really wants to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. And so you really have to think broadly, whether you're paying a bill or you're processing an invoice or you're running a seasoning line. Fundamentally, what is it that we're about? And we're about delivering flavor to the world's consumers inexpensively, conveniently, and accessible. So we're creating this whole great world for our consumers that lets them discover food from Thailand and India and Mexico and Morocco and all these really cool places, and making it really easy. And so if you've been to a Thai restaurant and had a meal, we can help you recreate that meal at home very inexpensively and very easily. And that's really fundamentally who we are. And it's also about the whole idea of how you develop relationships. Because if you kind of step back and think about how your relationships get developed, it's usually over a meal. With your family, with your significant other, with your friends. It's sometimes the food is secondary, but sometimes it's primary. When you go and visit another culture, the first thing generally when I visit a culture that they want to introduce me to is their food. Because it's kind of unique and it's different. It's what it stands for and it's regional. It was interesting in the earlier session, people said nobody knows what Old Bay is if you're not from Baltimore. And really about 80% of the sales are between Norfolk and Philadelphia, but you can buy it in Seattle and you can buy it in England and France too. But fundamentally, it's about that, and it's a really local, regional flavor, and it's what kind of it's kind of the heritage of Maryland. I'm glad we're a part of that. And in a lot of cultures, it's exactly like that. So if you step back and say we're selling spices, that's a pretty interesting business. But what we really are is about that passion for flavor. Now let's step away from the company idea and talk about career. Because the first thing that's going to make you successful in your career is a passion for what you do. And when I get a chance to talk to folks joining the company, the biggest thing I have to tell them is you need to have a passion for the business that you're in and a passion for what you do. You got to love it because there's so many things you can do to spend your time. There are lots and lots of companies to work for. There are lots of careers. There's lots of options. But you ought to be passionate about what it is that you do. I'll just tell you a little personal story about how I tend to approach my business. Fran said and talked about I was in the Army for 5 years. I was a captain in the Army, and it was pretty cool. That's a pretty junior officer, but still. 80% of the people in the Army have to salute you when you're a captain, so that's pretty cool. And so I had response. I had lived in a bunch of places internationally, had responsible for millions of dollars of equipment and hundreds of people, and so I thought I had a pretty responsible job. I left the Army and I went to work for Procter & Gamble. Procter is a fantastic country, a great training ground, a really leading edge consumer goods company. My first job at Procter & Gamble was the diaper tape buyer. I bought the tape, the little slivers of tape that you put on diapers that fasten them together, and so that was my job. From doing all this cool stuff in the Army, I'm now the diaper tape buyer at P&G. It doesn't sound really sexy, but the cool thing is, if my tapes failed, that was our #1 source of consumer complaints. Rod was at P&G, so he knows this, and so I got blamed if our tapes failed, and so I developed such an interest in the category. I was a 25, 26-year-old young man, no kids, just kind of newly married. I'd go spend hours in the diaper sections of grocery stores. I'd reorganize them. I'd check out what the competition was doing. I really, really understood it. I got to know, I had an entire division of 3M that only made diaper tape for me. And so I'd spend a lot of time really understanding it and developing that passion. And then after 6 months, I got promoted and I bought the plastic back sheet. The polyethylene back sheet that goes in. And so it's an idea, and that's part of what I've brought to every part of my, every job I've had, is that passion for learning and expanding what it is that I do. And if you don't have that passion in what you're doing, you ought to rethink what it is you're doing. You know, think about what it is that you really want to do. I mean, you hear all this advice about find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I think that is really good advice. Find something that you love. Find an environment that you love. And it makes work pretty easy. And so I've been fortunate to work for some really fantastic organizations. I've had some good days and bad days. I've had days when I went, you know, this is pretty screwed up. I don't know if I want to do this. But fundamentally, if you love what you're doing, it just makes things so much better. And it also brings out your creativity and your innovation. You'll have better ideas if you invest yourself. If you go to work, believe me, if you go to work 7 to 5 or 8 to 4 or whatever your work hours are, and you leave work behind, you're not going to get very far. I mean, you may get a paycheck, but you may end up having 25 years with 1 year of actual experience because you'll do the same thing over and over and over again. Never let that happen. Keep growing and expanding what it is that you do. So our business really is about a passion for flavor and about creating that passion. And the way we do that is by engaging our employees and letting them make our business successful. Which leads me to the next pillar, which is the power of people. Now, the power of people means a lot to all. There's a whole group of McCormick employees sitting here in the second row. And they know what the power of people and the history of the power of people are, because when you join the company, you get this book that was written, I think, in 1937 or 39 by C.P. McCormick, who ran the company for about 50 years. And the title of the book is The Power of People. So when our PR agency came to us and said, hey, one of the pillars ought to be about people, it was just natural that it would be called The Power of People. Because I'll tell you a little story about how this all kind of came about. What the power of people really means is our culture of teamwork and development and everybody having a voice and everybody wanting to make a difference, because that's really how you build and grow a company. I think we all recognize that individually we only have so much talent. We only have so much time, and we only have so much expertise we can bring. And by getting 10,000 people working together, there's an awful lot of innovation and success that can come from that. So that's really what we want to make sure we accomplish. But the foundation of that whole power of people goes back to 1932. McCormick was founded by a guy named Willoughby McCormick in 1889. Willoughby was a very typical entrepreneur of his day, very autocratic. Made all the decisions. It was a small company. It was what he did, but he got into trouble in the Depression. He was over-levered and needed money and was trying to save his company. His company was practically going bankrupt. So he was in New York trying to convince bankers to loan him money, and he died of a heart attack while he was in New York. His young nephew, Charles P. McCormick, C.P. McCormick, his son and grandson still work for the company. We're really proud of that. He had a very different idea, and he came back to the employees and he said, instead of doing what other companies are doing and cutting people and cutting salaries, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to cut the work week from 56 hours to 49 hours, and we're going to increase everybody's pay by 10%. Your part of the deal is I want your best ideas on how we can manage cost, how we can build and grow our business, and and that is kind of the rest of the history. Is the company became so productive and so successful that they were able to expand market share and grow the business in the middle of the country's worst economic crisis. Now that's a cool story and really a part of our heritage. But let me bring it to the management team that's running the company today, because go back to September of 2008. We were in a very similar economic condition. And we had just made the biggest acquisition in the history of the company. We borrowed $670 million that August, closed that deal the last week of August. borrowed $670 million, most of that in the commercial paper market, which means we were borrowing money every night to help manage debts because it's cheap money. Nobody ever thought markets were going to melt down. So Lehman Brothers collapses on September 19th of that year, and so all of a sudden, commercial paper is not quite as easy. And we're an A-rated. We're, you know, our debt rating's A- by S&P, so we're an A-rated company. And even with that, placing so much commercial paper every day was a bit of a challenge. We always placed it. We never had a problem. But as a management team, we stepped back and we said, we're not sure what the next year is going to look like. We're right in the middle of budget seasons. We're developing budgets. Frankly, every assumption we'd built our budgets on were completely useless. They just, you know, our cost structure was really different. Our customer base we weren't sure what they were going to do. And we said, okay, let's look at what other companies are doing. What other companies were doing were cutting wages, sometimes 10, 15%, eliminating bonuses, stopping matching the 401ks, laying people off, doing a lot of stuff they could to conserve cash. So as a management team, we sat down and made our list. And we quantified that list and figured out, you know, here's what we think we can do if we have to do that. Now, let's go back to the 30s. Let's go to our employees and let's talk about the challenges we have, because everybody's got a lot of uncertainty. Consumers kind of not sure what they're going to do. You know, even people who made a lot of money weren't sure they were going to have a job in 3 weeks, so they were pretty cautious in spending. And we built our budgets and we went ahead and gave raises. One of the few food companies that we competed with that did that. We said, you know, the bonuses are all performance-based. If we don't earn at least what we earn, if we don't earn more than we earned the previous year, we don't get any bonuses. So the bonuses are kind of self-correcting. So if the profits are there, then we'll pay the bonuses. There's no reason to freeze those. We'll you know, let the math work that out. And you know, we could announce a hiring freeze, but that's kind of dysfunctional because we've got these needs. We've got, you know we need some people, we need some experts, we need some people to in product development. We've got this health and wellness strategy that so we need to hire a PhD, MD, and so we said we're not going to announce a hiring freeze. We're just going to be very selective around what we do. And so the reason I tell that story isn't to brag about our management team. I'm very proud of our management team and the values and the commitment to people that we have. But it really is to tell you that story. The whole crux of that is to say culture and values really matter. They matter to a business, and if you kind of step back and say, as an individual, when you're contributing to whatever it is that you're doing, whatever business you want to be a part of, that should matter to you. You should be a great team player. You should find a way to contribute to the team. You should be a great team member. You should be a great team leader. And you should think about your contribution relative to others' contribution. And this is not a soft culture, by the way. I mean, we're a very people-supportive culture. But Rod, could you stand up a minute? When Rod Gordon gets in your face and holds you accountable, believe me, you're going to do what Rod asks you to do. And sometimes Rod gets in my face. And that's okay. But seriously, it's a people-involved culture, but it's also a performance culture. Because it's not fair to everybody else in the organization if somebody isn't pulling their weight. So this isn't about we're going to prop up weak performers. This is about accountability, but it's also about people having a voice and being accountable to each other. That's really what it's all about. Our third pillar is one that if you've taken marketing classes and you've seen anything about McCormick, was actually a consumer tagline for about 12 years till Lori Robinson, who was running marketing at the time, decided she had a better one, so she changed it, which I still haven't forgiven her. But the taste you trust, which speaks a lot to what McCormick really stands for. Willoughby McCormick, for all his faults, was the founder of the Flavor and Extracts Manufacturing Association because at the time, a lot of flavors, a lot of spices were adulterated and economically adulterated. They had stuff in them that they weren't supposed to have because the stuff they put in was cheaper. And frankly, we still see a lot of that. We see a lot of that today. I think Turkey grows about 75% of the world's oregano, and they export more than they grow. And you go, okay, how can that happen? Well, a lot of the oregano, not McCormick oregano, because that's what we stand for, a lot of the oregano has things like olive leaves and hazelnut leaves and sumac leaves in it. I'll just give you my commercial. McCormick products, we're not cheap. Nobody does business with McCormick because we're the cheapest. We're not the low price. We hope to give you a deal. We'll give you coupons and hope to encourage. But we are absolutely committed to quality, and so that's something that's a big part of our culture. If you walked into the tea house in our corporate headquarters, we have this kind of old English tea house that's built there, and over the mantle is a quote from the founder, which is, "Make the best, someone will buy it." And it really defines our whole business strategy around what we stand for in our culture. It's about recognizing there's always going to be cheap alternatives. But it's important that we stand for something, and every company needs to stand for something. Now let's take that to a discussion about your career, because you need to stand for something. You need to be a person that people can count on and trust. Whatever those values are, that's what you need to be. You need to be that kind of person, and that's something that I think really is important. You need to be trustworthy. You need to be a part and have a strong moral fiber and really stand for something, because that's really what it's all about. Be the kind of person that other people trust and can count on your word. That's something I think is absolutely critical. Our fourth pillar is inspiring healthy choices. Now, we've got a problem actually in most of the Western world. Actually, we have a problem in the whole world. We have a problem in most of the Western world with obesity. About a third of the population is obese or overweight. I saw something this morning which I couldn't believe, which is something like 80-something% of employees either are overweight or have some kind of health issues. Only 1 out of 7 employees are healthy. That I don't know how we correlate that, but we do have a problem. On the other hand, I was at a conference this year, and our morning speaker was the head of United Nations Food Aid, and she was talking about a world hunger crisis. Our next speaker was talking about the world obesity crisis. So somehow we got to get this in balance. We kind of have to figure that out. But what McCormick stands for is really inspiring those healthy choices. And it's about health and wellness. It's not just about, our spices, and we've done a lot of research on this, we created something called the McCormick Science Institute, where we actually fund research, independent research at universities on the health benefits of spices. And through centuries, spices have been used medicinally. And so there's something, it seems like every day there's something on the internet coming out about cinnamon does this, or ginger is good for digestion or inflammation, and there's all these kinds of things. And we said, well, we're the world's leader. We ought to understand this and validate it, and it ought to be scientifically validated. We had a professor who had done a lot of work at the National Institutes of Health that had done a paper on cinnamon and its benefits in regulating blood sugar, which is good for diabetes and a lot of other stuff. But so we brought him in, had him talk to us, and then we recognized that his study didn't pass scientific muster. It was too small a base, and so we actually funded another study that was scientifically and scientific. So we've kind of started to do that, and we recognize that spices are high. And we're not making health claims in our products, by the way, as much as Narisha Rush would love to. Narisha's from our marketing team. We are really advertising the antioxidant benefits. And it's as simple as put a little cinnamon on your morning oatmeal. And so it's kind of inspiring that. Now our industrial business, you could argue, is kind of counter to that, because we make snack seasonings for the big snack companies. The biggest snack company, the former president of that is going to be the next CEO at Smith Speaker, Al Groh. But that's PepsiCo is our largest customer. It's public. We do about 11% of our sales with PepsiCo. So we make snack seasonings. We make breaders for KFC. We make Big Mac sauce and and we make ketchup and drink mixes and all that kind of stuff for McDonald's. So you can say, you know, you guys are kind of talking out of both sides. Well, the reality is what we're trying to do and what we're helping those customers do is take a lot of that bad stuff out and replace it with great flavors that actually put some of the good stuff in. And I'm not going to stand up here. I'm not the food police. Believe me, I love to indulge. You know, I'll eat oatmeal and a salad during the day so that I can have a ribeye at night. So I'm not the perfect example, but most people kind of do that. So I think there is a role for indulgence as well as healthy eating for everybody. It's really about managing moderation, and that's what it's all about. And that's what we're trying to do is educate both consumers and customers and our own employees with a great wellness program on making the right kinds of healthy choices. So that's kind of fundamentally what that pillar is all about. The final pillar is one that our folks, we get several folks from our manufacturing operation that will understand this, and it's about managing high performance. And we have in most of our operations actually a high performance, where we call it the McCormick High Performance Work System. And Rod's been kind of the leader in bringing that in and the visionary in creating it. And so a high performance work system means very much like our power of people, the teamwork and the voice that you have in making things better, and really, and there's a whole process behind it. But what we're really proud of in terms of managing high performance is the performance of our company. We've had a great history built from the management team that preceded me, Fran and Bob Wallace, and that team built a great heritage for our company and really put us on a great path. McCormick has had double-digit earnings 11 out of the last 12 years, earnings growth, 11 out of the last 12 years. And that's pretty cool. And our total shareholder return is double that of our food peers and more than triple that of the S&P 500 over the last 5 years, the last 10 years. And if you're a shareholder, I had a guy today, I was speaking at a retiree luncheon this afternoon, and as I was leaving to come down here, one of the guys ran out and said, I want to tell you, my wife started working for McCormick on the T line 40 years ago. As a line employee, she never left manufacturing. As a line employee, when the stock hit $51, which it did in June, she became a shareholder millionaire. Just because she participated in the employee stock purchase program and reinvested the dividends and just kept doing that. And we had at one point, I don't know what the numbers are today, but we had over 40 McCormick millionaires working in our operations that had never made more than $50,000 a year. And that's because of the kind of returns and the performance that we're proud of. And if you look at McCormick shares over a 5-year period, a 10-year period, a 20-year period, or a 30-year period, we average about a 12% total shareholder return. I haven't done the math on where we are right now. I did it at the end of September. And if you'd looked at it from last September to the end of September, you would have gotten a 14% shareholder return. That's the share price increase plus the 2% dividend that we pay every quarter. So it's been something that we're very proud of. Now, we recognize that performance is only allowed, or all the other stuff that we have in our culture is only allowed because of performance. If we don't perform, we recognize that, I mean, we're a little company. We're $3.5 billion in sales, about $6.5 billion of market value, market cap. So we recognize we're vulnerable and we won't have the kind of culture that we want to have. We really believe strongly that it's our job to make sure that we're not an attractive takeover target. We like our independence. We like the fact that we think we can run the business better than somebody else. And so we kind of evaluate and make decisions. Fran did this, and we continue to do this. We look at our business just like somebody coming in from the outside would look at it to say, what is it that we would do differently? And so we have to keep sharp like that. And so that's one of the things that we really try to do. So that's kind of who McCormick is and what we stand for, and kind of how that relates to also what I think about careers, because you're going to open up your career options by your performance. If you don't get results, you're not going to get opportunities. The best thing you can do to get recognized is to get results. You can't be obnoxious about bragging about everything, and this isn't, believe me, the business world, and I'm not as good at some people are at daily recognizing good deeds, and that's something that I got to get better at. That's one of my coaching things. But you don't necessarily get recognized every day because you did your job. You get recognized for being extraordinary and for doing things different and really reaching out. And that's part of my what's enabled my career is to keep expanding the thinking around what my job is. I try to look and say, how do I make this job bigger? I got to do my day job. I get paid every day for doing a certain job. When I was a diaper tape buyer, I got paid for making sure that we had good quality diaper tape, that it was in the plants when it needed to be in the plants, that we didn't have too much inventory, and that we bought it at a fair price. And then we're working on the next generation of better diaper tape. That's what I got paid for. But I kept trying to expand that job and coming up with ideas of how we could make things better. And at every job I've had, I've tried to do that. Whether I'm in a little story, I got my first general manager job I was running global procurement for McCormick, and that's not a job you typically get promoted to general management in. You become an expert in buying stuff and beating up suppliers and in supply chain, and that's a great career, by the way. I think supply chain is a great career, and it's very important to McCormick. More than 40% of our cost of goods are materials, or ingredients. So it's a pretty big deal. But what you get rewarded for is, or recognized for, is expanding that. So McCormick was looking for a new distribution center, and nobody had responsibility for it. We didn't have a real estate department. We have anybody responsible for managing that project. And it wasn't my job. My job was buying spices and bottles and all that stuff. So I went to my boss at the time, who was an executive vice president on the management committee, and I said it was Carol Nordoff. Some of you may know him. I said to Carol, look, I'd like to take this on because a lot of the localities are given incentives for economic development. I'd like to take on the process. I'll manage all the real estate developers, and we'll get the engineers to do the design work. But I'll take this on, and nobody else was doing it. So Carol said, yeah, go ahead. So I negotiated with the different states and got the best economic incentive packages we could get from Virginia and Pennsylvania and Maryland. Did site studies and all. That wasn't my job. If I'd screwed up on my job, I'd have gotten fired. But that little extra kind of got me recognized. And so you have to, and I'm not doing that to brag, but it's thinking, how do I broaden this? How do I make this bigger so that I can, if I have ambition, I want to grow and expand. And so that's kind of how I think of that. That performance is such an important part of how you create opportunities for yourself. It's really what it's about. So, I can take you through an entire strategic presentation just like I do the investors. But I think what I'll do is kind of step back and just open it up for questions and see what you want to talk about. I may have some charts and graphs that'll support things, but why don't we take some questions? Yes, sir.
My name is Austin. I'll be your 5 cents.
Hang 1 second. We're going to get you a microphone.
Hello, my name is Austin Lee. I was actually at your fireside chat, and what you talked about before and now is actually the value of people and to really develop meaningful relationships, whether with your business partners or with your employees, I guess. So my question to you is, how do you go about developing and moving those business relationships, which are kind of aloof a lot of times, becoming more deep, personal, and meaningful relationships, whether it means having a McCormick factory worker become a partner in your business, or having the CEO of McCormick, the past CEO, becoming your mentor?
Yeah, that's a great question, Austin. We kind of talked about this because a lot of McCormick's business are joint ventures around the world. We've got a 60-plus year joint venture in Mexico with the same family, and we're in the 3rd generation of that family, and I think probably the 6th CEO of McCormick, that's working with that team. But it takes time and effort to build any kind of relationship, Austin, as I think you can recognize. We spend a lot of time in getting to know our partners, and a lot of outside of formal board setting. We do twice a year with our Mexican partners. We do weekends where we get together, and usually they'll come to Baltimore and we'll go to a football game. We'll go to Mexico and visit some part of Mexico we've never been to. Sometimes it's a resort type place, and sometimes it's a colonial city in the middle. So we'll go to the Mayan ruins. But part of that is just invest in the time. It's no different than the relationship that you have with your friends and your family. If you're not investing the time in them, they won't work. And it's being committed to that. Because we have arguments with our partners, and we have arguments with our customers, and we have arguments with our suppliers, but it's about that commitment. You have arguments, I have arguments with my spouse. I think everybody does. But it's about that commitment to that long-term relationship and building it. The first thing I tell people who come to work in McCormick is spend the time managing and developing relationships. We know you're smart. We hired you because you're smart. We know you're capable. We know you got great ideas. I had to learn this pretty early in my career. And how many people, if you're in finance, know what EVA stands for? Yeah, of course, all the professors know. It's economic value added. It's basically taking the amount of capital you have invested and the cost of capital, and are you generating something positive? So if your cost of capital is 8%, are you generating better than 8% return? That's EVA. But the EVA that matters in your career is effectiveness equals value times acceptance. So what that means is you're not going to be effective if you have the absolute best ideas in the world and nobody will accept you, will give you the time of day because you're either so self-serving or so obnoxious, or you haven't spent the time to develop the credibility to have it, even if you have those great ideas. So you're going to be more effective if you've got 80% great ideas with 100% acceptance than you are with 100% great ideas and 0 acceptance. So it really is thinking that way around what you spend the time to get to know people. The best friends I have are friends that, one, I was in college with. That's friends I still have today. Friends that I was in the Army with, and then people that I've worked with. And that's how it kind of develops that way, because you spend 80% of your waking time at work. So spend the time to develop those. And if you don't like the people you're working with, and they're all nice people, you're probably the jerk. So kind of think it really is important. And I'm really fortunate. I like most of the people I work with. Not every day, not every interaction, but I'm really fortunate that although somebody reminded me one time that people that you don't like don't stay here very long. So I don't know how that works either. But it really is important to develop those relationships. Yes. Can we get your mic?
Hi, thanks for coming. My name is Stephen Leutch, and I had a question about some of the sourcing that you do. And a lot of the countries where you would source from have inherent, unstable governments. Yep. And can you just talk a little bit about how you mitigate your risks when dealing with those countries?
Absolutely. McCormick's been sourcing globally for 121 years. So part of that is understanding the markets and the risks and everything that we're dealing with. So we make decisions. We typically try to have multiple sources for materials. So I'll give you, for instance, we buy a lot of herbs out of Egypt. We also buy a lot of herbs out of California and Turkey. But we were sourcing a lot out of Egypt. Well, when the spring, Arab Spring happened, we quickly increased the amount of inventory out of Egypt so that we kind of covered ourselves, because the ports, with everything melting down, the ports shut down for a couple of weeks. And so we can't afford to, you won't be very happy if you can't get basil for, you may not care, but You know, some consumers really care about their basil. So what we do is increase the inventory, but we have alternate sources. So we increased our sourcing out of Turkey and California, and brought in more inventory out of Egypt to kind of cover that. But there's lots of those things that we have to deal with because, you know, and there's nothing more frustrating. We develop long-term relationships with farmers and understanding growing conditions, and there's nothing more frustrating than a political crisis which shuts off a source of supply. A little kind of background story. We were developing in Uganda vanilla plantations, and we actually built a plant in Uganda to process vanilla. Vanilla is a big commodity for us for our vanilla extracts and for a lot of our flavors. When Idi Amin took over Uganda, we were out of the country. We basically padlocked the building and left, and the plantations kind of went away. Well, when the government stabilized, we went back in. Our padlock was actually still on the door, and our equipment was inside. So we're able to restart very quickly, growing and processing there. So we try to maintain that flexibility. But we're sourcing from, as you can imagine, lots of places. I have a chart in here somewhere I could flip through and show you. But we're sourcing from more than 40 countries. Most of them are within 10 degrees of the equator. And so we have a great team that's focused on global sourcing that really creates that whole pillar around the taste you trust, because we go to the farms and help farmers in growing the right kinds of products. We help them in handling for safety reasons, because food safety, as you can imagine, in this industry is a challenge. That's why you should only buy McCormick products. But it is something that we take very seriously. Thank you. Yes?
Hello, can you hear me? I don't know. Is it on? Okay. My name is Jimmy Elsko Drayton. I'm a mother of two, and brand loyalty is really important to me. I only buy McCormick's Mix.
Thank you.
Because it tastes good. How do you handle brand loyalty, whether it's through Twitter, social media, or through, I know the restaurants, which are great too, they give back locally in the community. How do you personally, as the president, pass that down to your restaurants, to your marketing team, and everyone else? Well,
first, we're not the restaurants. We're the spices. We sell to restaurants, but we're not the actual McCormick and Schmick restaurants. Long story that goes with that we were very nice to an entrepreneur that had a little restaurant in Seattle a long time ago. If they agreed to buy McCormick spices, so we allowed them to use the name, and then they sold the business. Now there's this big franchise, McCormick and Schmick's restaurants, which are very good, but the way we're trying to deal, because our products really do lend themselves to social media. And so, because a lot of our business is built around new recipes, around things that you've tried and you like and you tell your friends about. And so we want to help you discover that. We're not a big primetime TV advertiser. Advertising we keep increasing our advertising as a percentage of sales, but it's not a key component. We're not Procter. Procter advertises about 11% of sales. We advertise across the company about 4%. If you take that to our consumer business, it's about 7%. But we want to reach out to you with great recipes through our website, but we want to be very proactive in what we're pushing to you. We've really recently been doing a lot of social advertising, so doing things like tweeting that you're in Times Square and your picture and your recipe, you're grilling in Times Square. A lot of fun kind of things like that to generate excitement. But we're also doing an awful lot with our customers, partnering with a little company, not a little company, a great company called My Web Grocer, that works with grocers and with their websites and their circulars and integrating ourselves through search. Because typically some people may go to recipes.com or goodhousekeeping.com to look for a recipe. Most people are saying Mexican chicken. So I want to do chicken tacos. So being on the top level of that at search is a lot more cost effective for us. So we're doing an awful lot with that. But we have a great team of engaged operators who are monitoring Twitter and will respond and monitoring all the social networks and Facebook sites. We've generated hundreds of thousands of fans on Facebook for things like Grill Mates and Lowry's and Old Bay, because they're the kinds of things that generate that kind of passion. Thanks. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Kevin Kuo. I remember as a child riding around the Inner Harbor area before the Rouse Company built Harbor Place.
Sure.
And you would just roll down your car window and take a deep breath, and you would smell McCormick spices. And I thought, what a wonderful free way of advertising your product. I was wondering if you'd consider restoring a presence in the Inner Harbor, maybe just a little storefront with samples or something, just because that's such a old tradition in Inner Harbor, Baltimore. And my second question is, how has the organic food movement affected the spice industry, and specifically McCormick?
Yep. First, thank you for that. McCormick was such a part of the heritage of downtown Baltimore, and being there in the Inner Harbor. I mean, that was my first experience actually with McCormick, is going to the Inner Harbor and as a kid from South Carolina and smelling the spices. A lot of people have these fond memories of that, and I remind them that we only ran cinnamon once every 2 weeks. And most days we're running pepper and cumin and garlic and all that stuff. Fran's a neighbor, and Fran, we get cinnamon occasionally. We get garlic daily.
It's moved to Hunt Valley.
Yeah, yeah. But it was actually a fond, and Lloyd Robinson's here. She's our vice president of communications, and she's taken on a little project to create a McCormick store in the Harbor Place, and the whole idea is to kind of play to that heritage of what we've done. Plus, there's so many people who don't know the story that will be passionate about McCormick, that we want to help them discover some products that aren't necessarily on the market. So we use it as a testing ground. Of course, we'll sell you an Old Bay golf shirt, and a crab mallet. That's we got to make money, but we are actually in the process of evaluating that. Secondly, the organic food movement. Fundamentally, most everything that we do is natural, but not everything is organic. But we have launched in the U.S. because it was important to consumers about 30 gourmet organic items. So the large selling organic items we have, and there is a certain level of consumer that is really important to. In the UK. Fair trade has been much more of an important initiative. So we've worked with the Fair Trade Association to generate a fair trade line that's important to consumers. So we're trying to go where the consumers want us to go. The ability of turning everything that we have into organic, the agriculture just isn't there. It's not really feasible. But certainly we offer those items in our gourmet line, and they've done very well. Thank you. Yes.
My name is Edward White, and you've talked a lot about Old Bay, and of course everyone knows the spices and the little red tops. Right. But what are some of your other brands that we might not think of when we think of McCormick? Do you guys have any other famous brands? I know there's a guy here with the Zatarain's.
Boy, that's a great question.
Portfolio, so I wasn't sure.
That's really a great question. About half our business is spices and seasonings, but we own Zatarain's, which is a great New Orleans company that predominantly is in rice mixes, but you can also buy frozen jambalaya and blackened chicken Alfredo and some things like that are really true to Zatarain's. Thai Kitchen. Is another business. Lowry's we own. Outside the U.S., we own DeCroix, which has about 70% market share in France, as well as leading shares in Spain and Portugal and Belgium. We own Schwartz in the U.K., which has about 45% market share in the U.K. We have Clubhouse in Canada, which has about 50% market share in Canada. So part of our strategy around acquisitions. That's not what you asked, but I'll tell you anyhow. Part of our strategy is maintaining the local brand that has a lot of equity, because people really love their local flavors. And we have this strategic debate of branding everything McCormick around the world or keeping the local heritage. And we believe that that flavors, that food is such a part of the local culture, that equity is so strong, and we don't want to go in and dictate the brand because we think that in a lot of cases the local brand is stronger. When we go in into a new market like China, we went in as McCormick because it was greenfield and there was nothing that existed. But that's part of our approach. But thank you, good question. Yes.
So like in the beginning, you were talking about how like you alter your sales to specific regions to like get their passions. So like when you do international sales, did you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. When you do international sales, how does like the passions of like you can't probably sell Old Bay in certain countries because it doesn't fit their passion. So how do you adjust to that?
You know, almost every country has something like Old Bay that's signature. It's usually a seasoning product that people use for everything. Old Bay is a little one in the U.S., but there's a product in China we just discovered this because we thought we were the market leader in China, and we went 2 levels down in our market research, and we found this one item, one product that actually it's essentially one SKU that everybody uses. So it's kind of discovering that to make sure we're delivering against that flavor profile. And there's a lot of similarities, although what leads in one country may not lead in another. So we adapt our product portfolio to how the local culture cooks and eats. So in China, we sell spices. We sell branded McCormick spices. If you go to the wet markets, you'll see little sachets that you can buy for a few pennies each of white pepper and red pepper and that sort of thing. You can also find our dry seasoning products that are McCormick branded. But our bigger business there is actually chicken bouillons and powders, seasoning pastes that are used for a different kind of cooking, for wok cooking. So we adapt to the local market. I think we have to do that. Thank you. Yes.
About acquisitions and domestically and internationally, how are you able to maintain the culture of the organization within these acquisitions, and do you look at that when you're looking to acquire new companies?
Yeah, I think culture in acquisitions is something that people may tend to dismiss, but is extremely important. If you don't have a similar set of values, operationally you can change things, and with all of our acquisitions, we have to change the way, we change the systems. We want to be on one system platform, and we may change the quality disciplines and that sort of thing. But if there's not a fundamental match of values, then those are really tough. We get a lot of credit for making good acquisitions and integrating them. Part of it is because we go in with the thought that we know who the general manager is going to be, and we quickly bring them in, and we have a multifunctional transition team that helps integrate that business. So there is that piece of it. But we don't necessarily go in with the idea that we're going to McCormickize everything. I'll give you, for instance, Zatarain's had a strong culture and a strong business and was really growing, and we didn't want to screw that up. We didn't buy the business for synergies. We bought it for growth. And so what we did is we took some time to get to know the people there, to get to know their how we sold and how they developed products and that sort of thing, and then started to integrate it after a bit of time as we understood it. And the guy that was the CEO of Zatarain's is now the president of McCormick's international business. And that was a great cultural fit. And I think for the most part, the people that were running the business then, there's a lot of those people that are still left. We've continued to bring in talent. We've integrated the sales organizations. We've integrated manufacturing and that sort of thing. But we took some time to do it so that we understood the culture. And there is that mismatch. I mean, I'll say we've been very fortunate. We don't have a 100% success rate, by the way, on acquisitions, but we've done a good job on the big ones. We've externally we get a lot of credit for being really strategic about them and not overpaying and doing a good job of really integrating. I think every McCormick person, at least in here, could name a couple that aren't meeting the expectations that we set. And so we kind of recognize that. Sometimes we've thought, man, we got a great person running this business, we can keep them. And then we find, you know, when you write an entrepreneur a check for $100 million, they just aren't that motivated to come to work every day. So you gotta kind of think differently about that. Yes.
You said in the beginning it's important to love what you do. Like what specifically, like other than money, do you love about like what you specifically do?
One, being a part of a business that is really well recognized and stands for high quality and leadership is something that's important to me. When I was coming out of the Army and interviewing with companies, I wanted to be part of a winning organization. I wanted to be part of an organization that led in whatever market or whatever category that they were in, because I want to be a winner. I want to be associated with a winner. Working with people that I really enjoy being around and that I have a lot of confidence and trust in is something that I really do enjoy. I mean, I have to say I get a very cool job. I get to represent these great people here. I got a great brand behind me that has 121 years of heritage. I've got an international business so when I land in a country, I automatically have people that want to talk to me about what they do, that are enthusiastic about it. So it kind of feeds and breeds on itself. So that is a cool part of it. Yes.
A few minutes ago, you mentioned that there are several health problems in the U.S. With obesity and overweight, and in India, diabetes is a huge issue, and several countries that are developing now. Yep. Are beginning to face these kinds of problems. Now, at a systemic level over the next 10 or 20 years, how do you see these issues changing the market, or at least affecting your business? And are there any intentions or plans to change that?
Yep. It's the health and wellness awareness has changed our business a lot over the last 2 or 3 years, because there's a recognition that we've got to, in all of our major markets, that we've got to do something to address the issues. And part of it is education. I mean, I sit on the board of a group called the Healthy Weight Commitment Foundation, which started as a couple of food companies and has now grown to include Nike and the Robert Wood Johnson's Foundation and the U.S. Army, to really educate people. It's pretty simple. If you put 1,000 calories in and you don't burn 1,000 calories, you're going to gain weight. If you put 1,000 calories in and you burn 1,500, you're going to lose weight. And so it's kind of getting to that energy balance and recognize. I think the food industry has a responsibility to be aware of their products. I mean, I really, really do. And the industry takes it responsibly. We're all fathers and I'm not, but some are grandfathers and grandmothers and mothers that really care about the health of our families and our environment. So I think the food industry has a very specific mission there. But it's not just the food companies. And so we have a lot of discussion around advertising cereals to kids. Well, gosh, I grew up, with the Trix Rabbit and all the icons and Ronald McDonald and everything like that. We were allowed to drink soft drinks once a week in our house. It wasn't every day. It was once a week, and that wasn't because my parents were health conscious. It was because we couldn't afford it. But a lot of that stuff is really available today, and I think as industry we have to be very conscious of those problems. I mean, I think if you talk to a lot of people in the food industry that are selling some of these, they're categorized as good for you, better for you, and fun for you kind of products. Good for you means that it actually does have a health benefit. Better for you means it's not as bad as the stuff we were selling you before. And fun for you means you shouldn't eat that much of it because it's going to make you fat. But the people that are selling that recognize that if we're not proactive about that that processed food could easily become the tobacco of the next decade, with all the legislation and the lawsuits and things like that. So people are really not out of fear taking it seriously, but out of societal responsibility. And you know, and that's, I mean, we're really fortunate in this country that we have a safe, available, inexpensive food supply. We really do. And there's a role, I think, for all of it. I don't think we can demonize anything. One of my really good board members is the CEO of Hershey. Now, what a great company. Now, Hershey bars have been around for over 100 years. And just because there's a change, you're going to tell me I can't have a Hershey bar on Halloween? So it's kind of that balance, and it's that education. But it is a lot of awareness that companies, I think, are responsible for. Yes?
Hi, my name is Stacy Bank, and I was wondering, you were saying before how important that McCormick's products are pure and there are no added, you know, other things to it. And so how do you ensure that your suppliers are providing pure products and you're not getting, you know, random products in your basil?
Yep. We have we deal with people that we've dealt with a long time, and we have high standards of that. We also have a group that does supplier quality assurance that goes out and visits to ensure that they are operating the way they say they're operating. And we do that around the world. We've got people on the ground in India and China, and people that travel all over the world to ensure that. And we do a lot of inspections as things come in to validate that we're getting what we say we're getting. So we spend a lot of focus on making sure that happens. So, okay, sorry. We'll go to this side of the room because we haven't.
Hello, my name is Nat. You mentioned earlier that you also source your ingredients from Thailand. So as Thailand is facing the worst flood in more than 50 years now, so do you have any effect with those suppliers, and do you have any plan to help them?
Yes, we have this around the world. We have a very good program in working in the communities where there have been disasters. I don't know specifically what we're doing in Thailand today, but we've been working a lot with our Thai kitchen products, as well as we have a manufacturing facility in Thailand as well. And so as we identify those kinds of needs, we typically have a part of our budget, our corporate social responsibility budget, set aside to help deal with those things. So things like earthquakes in China and in Haiti, our employees typically contribute very aggressively to things like that. We did the same thing in Japan. So as we see the right way to be able to help, we do that. Now we're not a social services organization, in any business, but we have a responsibility, and so we want to make sure that we help in the communities where we live and work. So that's just part of our culture.
You have one more question. One more question, real quick. I don't need. I can talk. Two questions regarding costs. Number one, your production in the United States versus internationally. What percentage is done internationally versus domestically, number one? And two, there's got to be some stress or some pressure from your shareholders about moving corporate headquarters over to Europe at a 12% or 15%, like Ireland, for instance, on corporate tax, versus here in the United States. So, you know, how do you compete against and combat against and not offer the shareholders, you know, a higher percentage of returns on their investment?
Sure, thank you. We typically manufacture about 90 to 95% of our products in the region where we sell them. So in the U.S., even though products are grown all over the world, we process and package the products that we sell in the U.S., predominantly in North America, in the U.S. and Canada. We do some production in Canada for the U.S. and some production in the U.S. for Canada, but typically in the region where we supply. But what you're pointing out is a real challenge for us. And I'll give you one quick example because I know we're running out of time. Our primary competitor in the ingredient business is a Singaporean-based company that is largely an ingredient company. They've got I think about a 5% corporate tax rate in Singapore. They do most of their processing, manufacturing in Cambodia. I do the majority of mine in Hunt Valley, Maryland. We have about a $20 an hour average rate plus a heavy benefit load with health care and everything that goes with that. And I've got a 35% federal tax rate in addition to a high state tax rate. So in order for us to be competitive, we have to be that productive. So I have the highest labor rate per hour in the spice mill that's part of Rod's responsibility in Hunt Valley, Maryland. I have my lowest cost per pound at my spice mill in Hunt Valley, Maryland because of the investments that we've made for productivity. So it's making sure that we maintain that focus and that balance is what allows that to happen. But thank you. It's a critical issue. And as a country, we have to restructure our corporate tax policies, and it's not just about the rate, it's about the whole policies and labor costs. But that's about investment and productivity.